I'm here with David Berger, who is also my brother and a very experienced traveler. What are you up to now? 20, 30 countries, I think, right?
Yeah, almost 38.
Almost 38. Boy, so yeah, he's closing in on me. I'm going to have to step it up here soon if I want to keep my lead. But he also blogs on davidberger.net, and he just wrapped up 3 years in Sub-Saharan Africa. So I've asked him to sit down and share some of his stories, some of his adventures, some of his experiences. And for this video, I've asked him to talk about his favorite places in Africa, what he saw, what he loved about those places, and why he'd recommend them.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the introduction. Yeah, some of my favorite places, specifically in Sub-Saharan Africa. I have a lot of want-to visits that are very high on my list, including West Africa and some parts in Northern Africa. But during my time in Zambia, I had the fantastic opportunity to visit Botswana, Malawi, Tanzania, Zanzibar, and of course to explore Zambia itself. I served as a Peace Corps volunteer in the Community Health Improvement Program in Zambia from 2011 until 2013. And then I served as a Peace Corps volunteer leader in charge of Southern Province in Zambia from 2013 to 2014. Now, during that time, we're allowed a pretty substantial amount of leave. We're given 24 vacation days, which is quite liberal considering it's a U.S.-based organization. And we're also given cultural days where we're allowed to take time out to go and explore cultural events in our host country. So I took full advantage of those. And although I wasn't able to take all of my vacation due to my projects, which were my primary focus, of course, I was able to travel quite a bit. And some of my favorite places were there at home in Zambia. I've got to say that Victoria Falls, which is one of the 3 great falls on the planet, was just absolutely stunning. There's a difference between seeing it at the end of the rainy season and seeing it at the end of the dry season. And just the power and the majesty of those falls during rainy season is almost indescribable. It's very difficult to articulate the beauty of it. The water comes crashing over the precipice of those falls and falls down into the basin. And during high water, at the end of rainy season, there is a plume that's between 2 and 4 kilometers tall of mist rising from the thunder of the water coming over. And its name in local language is Mosi Otunia, which is the smoke that thunders. Then in dry season, you still are just swept by the majesty of the falls, because then you have all of the beauty of the rock and of the river coming over it at low water. And it's just absolutely gorgeous. And stunning. You have beautiful rainbows and just amazing natural grandeur. Another area that was really a favorite during my time in Zambia was in Tomba Lake and Lake Mweru. Lake Mweru is at the northern tip of Luapula province, and it forms the border between that northern area and the Congo. And it is a gorgeous lake with white sand beaches and reeds, and the sunsets across that lake are just fantastic. In Tomba Lake is a natural preserve, and it is a series of cascading waterfalls that culminate in a larger waterfall at the base, and it again is just absolutely exceptional, providing days of hiking, an opportunity to camp and to really embrace and enjoy the natural beauty of northern Zambia. Up on the plateau and where it kind of starts to change from savanna into temperate and subtropical climate. It is just absolutely outstanding.
So for viewers that probably aren't that familiar with Zambia, what are the different climates like? Is it open plain and safari, or is it lush jungle, or what does it look like?
Yeah, well, so you have kind of the whole range. One of the wonderful things about Zambia is that it's located just north of Botswana and Zimbabwe, which house the Kalahari Desert and the Okavango Delta, which I'm sure you've seen on planet Earth. And then moving north, you move from that kind of drier, semi-arid desert into scrublands, savanna, large grasslands, and then into small brush and forested areas. And then as you continue to move north, which I believe is 8 degrees latitude for the country, it's about the size of Texas. So as you continue to move north, you move into a series of plateaus and temperate woodlands. And then as you move up towards Congo, you get a little bit of the subtropical environment. And then just a little bit north of the end of Zambia, you move into Tanzania, Congo, Rwanda, Uganda, which have the jungles and have fully tropical environment.
So outside of Zambia, what were some of your other places in the region or during your 3 years?
Yeah, well, I think the two highlights, which are pretty well known, were Lake Malawi and in Zanzibar. So Zanzibar is part of Tanzania, although it is a separate entity. They are bound together. And it is home to absolutely stunning white sand beaches, amazing coral reefs, and diving that are unparalleled, with very friendly people and an amazing history of spices, of trade, throughout the colonial history and the slave trade, but also in goods and spices. And there are government and private spice farms on the islands. And then there's also a lot of history in the city. Stone Town especially is just fantastic to walk through and enjoy. And it has a night market with fresh seafood every night that is delectable.
So the street food itself was really good and approachable, and you felt comfortable eating it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as anything, as a wary traveler, you want to make sure that you wash your hands and that you're always taking care of your hygiene. But whenever you're eating street food, you want to see it being cooked, and you want to make sure that it's cooked a little bit overdone, because you want to make sure that the flame is on it and that it's hot. I mean, you still run the risk anytime you're eating seafood or anytime you're eating street food of having spoilage or having food that isn't prepared very nicely or very hygienically. And you just have to kind of keep an eye out for it. So if you see somebody on the street grilling it up and it's on hot flame, it's on a skewer, or it's being prepared right before your eyes, being mixed right before your eyes, then it's usually a good sign. Another thing to look for is to look for the vendors that cover their food. There are these really neat, very cheap nets that fit over food now, and they're like a little dome, and then it's got either mosquito netting or some type of mesh on it to keep flies off. And so you'll see a lot of the vendors will keep those over their food to cut down on flies or other sources of contamination. And that's another sign that folks are taking care to make sure that they don't get their tourists sick. I mean, we are a huge cash flow to them, and so they want to make sure that their food is hygienic for us and that we enjoy it.
Oh, it sounds like an incredible visit. Now, you can see photos and hear stories from David's adventures on davidberger.net, and also stay tuned for additional videos with him as I go through and pick his brain on his experience in Africa.